And with inflation recently hitting multi-year highs, what must the government do to bring down prices of goods and services for good? Joining us now via Zoom is Asian Consulting Group Chief Tax Advisor Mon Abrea, joining us from Miami, Florida. Thank you so much for joining us, Mon. We just heard Felipe Medalla, the Bangko Sentral governor, saying that we can expect more interest rate hikes next year on top of what we already have of 5.5%. So you are advocating higher taxes to tame inflation. So is there still need to tame inflation when we are already seeing the central bank raising interest rates aggressively?
Well, as we can see, Rico, given the contractionary monetary policy, it's not enough to really temper our inflation. And this is not an isolated case. It's a global crisis that all the governments around the world are dealing right now. And if the US Fed continue to increase their policy rate, then BSP has to respond, like what they've been doing the last couple of months. And that's why I am proposing a fiscal restraint or consolidation to complement the monetary policy, Rico. Otherwise, we may have survived this year, but we don't know what will happen next year.
So what is this fiscal policy that you are pushing for? What kind of additional taxes must Congress legislate to be able to bring down prices?
Well, you know, at Harvard, we study policies, but we do not disregard the political climate as well. We know for a fact that fiscal policy will require legislation, which means it is not as simple as BSP increasing the interest rate, where they don't need any congressional approval or oversight. They can do it independently. So for the fiscal policy, we are considering increasing taxes on those that will affect the rich or the wealthy, not the poor and the most vulnerable. And I am referring to the excise tax on non-essential goods. Remember, during the train law deliberation, the supposed excise tax on luxury cars should have been increased to 200%. But after the bicameral, it was reduced to 60% only. So I guess the Congress can now look into it so that we can improve or increase our revenue collections. When the inflation is so high, Rico, fiscal policy means either cut government spending or increase tax rates. And we know for a fact that if we increase income taxes or VAT, which the Congress is proposing on digital services, it will hit again the poor and the low-income earners. And we're trying to avoid that just because the government should actually be easing the hardship of our kababayans, not further burdening them.
So if you increase the excise tax on non-essential items such as luxury cars, alcoholic drinks, and cigarettes, combine that with a monetary policy, aggressively raising interest rates, how low could we see inflation go? Because Felipe Medalla already said that if we raise interest rates even further, this could bring down inflation to 3%, which is within the target band of the Bangko Sentral for inflation.
You know, Rico, the inflation is actually a combination of supply and demand shocks, which means it's not enough that we just consider increasing the rates. The government should rationalize its budget and allocate more subsidies to non-performing industries, particularly our agricultural sector. Remember that right now, you just mentioned in your headlines that the trade deficit continues to widen and the budget deficit as well, given the 5.2 trillion approved budget. If the revenue collections will not increase, and if the domestic industries or productivity will not improve, then we will keep relying on importation, like what NEDA is suggesting to lower the tariffs, which means further widening the trade deficit. So it will be a cyclical issue, Rico, that's the reason why I am suggesting in my policy memo that we have to consider a combination of the monetary and fiscal policy. And that should not be restricted to increasing tax rates. The government should be more transparent and accountable in disbursing the budget, given that the last decade, there is at least 1 trillion on an average, Rico, unused and misused budget. And we know that for a fact. The Parmali scandal, the overpriced laptops, that cannot continue. The government has to make sure that they spend our taxes judiciously and allocate enough funds and subsidy to the low-performing or non-performing industries
Indeed,
to
Mon.
help improve our economy.
Indeed, Mon, higher prices are hurting Filipinos, no, across the board. So this proposal of yours of increasing the excise tax on non-essential items, so should this be certified as urgent in Congress? And should it be prioritized over the Maharlika Investment Fund?
Rico, I believe so. If the Maharlika Investment Fund, which has no direct impact or will not address our urgent high inflation issue, I think the president should really prioritize this possible legislation to either increase taxes or rationalize our budget. I think that's more important than Maharlika Investment Fund, which will give us more exposure given our 13 trillion debt and increasing prices right now.
And of course, this Maharlika Investment Fund, I mean, if you take a look at Singapore, which has Temasek Holdings, and of course, other countries like Norway, they have surplus economies, not deficit economies. So, do you see
not only that,
do you see any logic
not only that, Rico,
in launching it?
Actually, Rico, not only that, the countries who have heavily invested through these sovereign funds, a lot of them also incurred a lot of losses, and the Philippines cannot incur more losses given our 13 trillion debt. So if you will ask me whether the Maharlika Investment Fund is important or will help, probably yes in the future, but not now. It's really wrong timing given that, as you have said, we don't have budget surplus. Second, we have a 13 trillion debt. We need to reduce our debt, not further expose, given the lack of financial space, fiscal space in our government. So I honestly think that all the factors or all the considerations are all gearing towards not prioritizing Maharlika Investment Fund. Instead, this fiscal policy tools, which I am proposing, that hopefully the Congress, the Department of Finance, and the President will consider.
Mon Abrea, thank you so much for your insights. Asian Consulting Group Chief Tax Advisor Mon Abrea joining us from Miami, Florida.